government published a review AI Opportunities Action Plan. The issue is already compounding at an astronomical rate. Massive lawsuits, all regarding the unauthorized training of AI. The government's like, no, it's great for our economy. We really need to make this easier for tech companies. What are you doing? Well, this is pretty horrifying. The UK government is proposing updating copyright law. And the idea is that they're like, we want to make the economy better. So we're going to make it easier for AI companies, tech firms to be able to utilize copyrighted stuff. Now, you might be wondering, well, why does this impact me? Why do I care? If you are a creator of anything, this isn't just music, if you write books, if you do podcasts, if you make anything creative, in the UK, this definitely applies to you, but this does have international implications as well. So in a nutshell, what is happening is that the UK government is proposing that AI companies be permitted to essentially have a compulsory license, meaning right away, if they want to use your created stuff from the internet, they can just use it for their AI training, and you as the creator would need to go and opt out in order to not have your stuff used. And the reason why that's absolutely absurd is because how would you know? Realistically, the question here is, even if the government's like, this is such a great idea, let's do it. How would creators know where to go? What website? What do they need to do to opt out? Do we need to send an email? Do we need to go to a certain page on a certain website? And P.S., the internet is never ending and huge. So that is the proposal, and that is the problem. Now, what I want to accomplish in today's video is to go through, well, what basically is going on with UK copyright law? What is everyone saying about it, right? What's the reaction been? And then, of course, what is the impact going to be? All right, so today we're looking at UK copyright law. We've done the deep dive in a very similar way with US law, the state of copyright, and what the Copyright Office has had to say about it. Now, comparatively, the UK, and this was January 13th of 2025, the government published a review of the UK's AI sector entitled AI Opportunities Action Plan. So basically showing its hand and being like, we think that we need to make things a little bit more lenient for AI companies so that it can go and train on human-made stuff without all these annoying barriers of getting licenses and permissions from the actual creators. So then the House of Lords, which reviews legislation, it debates issues and policies, had this deliberation period. And in this deliberation period, it's very similar to in the United States, where the Copyright Office puts out an initial notice and says, hey, we really want to get some feedback from the creative community, right? From different businesses. We want to just hear from our community on whether this is a good idea and what should we do. So the House of Lords did the same thing. They received over 11,000 responses and then had this deliberation process through the 25th. So what were the responses, you may ask? And actually, I'm getting so far ahead of myself. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new here and you think this is important stuff. We discuss all things music business, intellectual property on this channel, but back to it. So what were the responses? We heard from, let's start with, in the music sector, we heard from Paul McCartney, Elton John being like, this is a really terrible idea. Now, funny enough, with Paul McCartney, he actually has used AI in the music creation process because he had this unfinished demo with John Lennon, but it's really important here. The AI was used as a tool to clean up the vocals, not to create new vocals, to impersonate John Lennon. So that's a key distinction. But nonetheless, we also had a silent album. Okay, so 1,000+ artists put this thing together. On the list includes Annie Lennox, Kate Bush. This album was released in protest, just to say, hey, UK government, what are you doing? Now, you know it's getting bad when music artists are literally releasing sound to protest the unauthorized scraping and mining of data from copyrighted music without permission. But this is what they did. The album is called Is This What We Want? And 12 tracks, which states the British government must not legalize music theft to benefit AI companies. Now, I will say, I went to the isthiswhatwewant.com website and I wish there had been some kind of like call to action or donate now or just something, because it was a pretty simple landing page with not too much detail about just how terrifying this is and potentially how devastating it would be to the creative sector for the UK if the government does this. In 2023, for example, the UK government reported that 7 £7.6 billion had been contributed by the creative industry to the UK economy. That seems relevant. So I imagine the government probably doesn't want to lose this, so they've been in this consultation, deliberation period and got, like I said, a whole bunch of responses and a lot of criticism. You know, one of the strongest critics that we heard from was Sony Music, right? One of the biggest record labels in the world. And Sony's like, this is not only a terrible idea, but actually we, Sony, have had to take down already 75,000 deepfake copyright infringement songs. So AI generated deepfake tracks that were then put onto music streaming platforms. And it's funny, that brings to mind one of these companies we ran across called Lalals. And Lalals, you go to their main page and they're like, hey, you want to make songs with Taylor Swift's voice? Hey, you want to make songs with Drake's voice? Just pay us a subscription and we got you covered. And they even make claims in their terms of service that they've gotten all the legal clearances. I don't think so, at least from what I can see, what I can find, and just my experience being an intellectual property lawyer. I sincerely doubt it. If you're needing legal help, feel free to reach out to Delgado Entertainment Law, which is my firm. We offer free case evaluations with our case manager. So just meaning you don't have to make any kind of commitment. We'll just see how we can help you. Feel free to call us. You can text, you can email. We look forward to hearing from you. But the issue of unauthorized use of copyrighted works and how it's now merging with image and likeness issues, right? So AI creating lookalikes, the deep fakes. The issue is already compounding at an astronomical rate. And so I think the criticism is, well, now if we have literally the UK government saying, you know what, AI companies, we're pretty much just going to have a compulsory license. It's a contract that's going to be set up without creatives' permission because we, the government, think that it should just be, but you know, little side note, if the artist doesn't want their stuff used by some random AI company, they can opt out. Now, we already can see how this is being handled. Even back to, what was it, 2020? Do you guys remember Drake? He put out a track with Tupac. He used AI to replicate rapper Tupac's voice, who of course is not with us anymore. And Tupac's lawyers for his estate immediately sent a cease and desist. That video came down. But today, specifically in the music management sector, you have, for example, other major record labels like Universal. And if you guys remember, Universal, its contract with TikTok lapsed and Universal would not renew. Now, there were 3 issues that Universal pointed to when it goes, we're not cool doing a new deal with TikTok, so we're taking all of our music off of your platform. AI was one of those main issues because we're seeing what's happening with the unauthorized use of music, the fact that artists are not getting paid their royalties properly now because there are new songs being created based on artists' music without authorization. And as you know, here in the United States, there have been massive lawsuits filed by, of course, the major record labels against Suno and Udio, Claude, all regarding the unauthorized training of AI by these companies. Now, the House of Lords did have their own separate debate. This was on January 30th, 2025, and I found their website where they post the comments that are offered by the different lords. And, you know, there were concerns about what this would do to the creative market, but there were some suggestions in regards to things like digital watermarking. And I thought that's one thing that has not been explored enough at all. Whereas I go to the extent where like, hey, there might be some really negative impact to the creative community, but the government's like, no, it's great for our economy. We really need to make this easier for tech companies. Well, even if that's the case, can't we bridge the gap to still protect creatives and then also to have a meaningful conversation about practically how would this work? Have you guys used the internet before? And do you understand that literally anyone can start a company, anyone can start a website and be like, I am an AI company. I do appreciate some of the concerns and sentiments for the creative community that came out of this debate. But what I wasn't reading was someone just being like, it's virtually impossible given the scope of AI companies and the size of the internet in order to have any kind of creative to even go and opt out all the places that person would need to opt out if they don't want their stuff used by a tech company, or plural tech companies. Now, if you're still hanging with me, I want you to drop the keyword white bunny as a comment, just because I want to know who are my OGs who enjoy the deep dives. This is just for me and literally no other reason. But the next question you might have is, well, okay, if UK does this, that really sucks. Does this impact things internationally? Does it impact things for other countries? And I believe so. All right, so hang with me on this. There's something called the Berne Convention. The Berne Convention is an international treaty. It's an agreement that a whole bunch of countries opted into, including the UK. And one of the articles states that the enjoyment and exercise of copyright rights shall not be subject to any formality. So copyright protection, meaning you make your song, you write your book, copyright protection in your creative thing must be automatic and not require formalities such as going and getting a registration or opting out from a contract you never agreed to. So here's what I think could happen, right? So as a member of the Berne Convention, you have agreed not to create an impermissible formality, a contract that creatives need to now opt out of and magically be able to figure out where they even need to go to do this. But the Berne Convention also protects other things. These are called moral rights. Moral rights are things like the right of attribution, the right to get credit for what you've created, the right to have the integrity of your work, meaning that, if you create a song and then AI goes and makes the song based on your song, well, now there's a derivative of your song out there that you never authorized. So I think that would be yet another violation of the Berne Convention. And here's the thing, when it comes to US copyright law and the way things are right now, we have a whole bunch of lawsuits that are pending. We've had one lawsuit having to do with the use of AI and this defense of fair use that was used, and the tech company lost. But the distinction with that case so far is that it wasn't generative AI. The big lawsuits by the record labels against, for example, music, AI generation platforms, Suno, Udio, is that this is generative AI. So basically, the jury is still out on what's going to happen with US law. But right now, what tech companies are doing is they are getting creatives to voluntarily opt in. So it still is a choice. It still is a decision, not that it's a good one. And as we've covered on this channel, companies are using incentives like financial promises that really aren't clear and they're vague and we're super concerned about them. But nonetheless, they're trying to get creatives to opt in. So if you're telling me that UK law will be that, no, now you have to opt out. There's a contract that is automatically created between you and all these AI companies. And if you don't want them to use your stuff, you have to go and opt out. I would argue that makes US law more protective. It's a stronger type of protection for creatives right out the gate. And if that's the case, bear with me here, that's a violation of the Berne Convention, because Berne Convention is we are equalsies here, that there will be reciprocity of the rights of copyright between the countries. We don't get to have countries with better protections. And if there's a breach by the UK, my understanding is that there might be retaliatory tariffs on the UK. So again, ultimately not a good thing. But back to what is driving this. It seems that this belief that AI, it's the future, it will be the thing and is the thing that is driving economic growth for many countries, not just the UK, but that's what the UK government is focused on. And so the UK government thinks that there needs to be these changes to make it easier for AI companies to train freely on creators' works. And creators do not agree. The UK government has still not announced what the update will be, so who knows? Maybe they'll see your comments. Drop a comment down below.